Begin today the Gemara on Daf Samach Hey Amud Beis towards the bottom, 9 lines up from the bottom of the Amud, where it says Maskifla Rab Zeda. We're mamish in the middle of a sugi here, so let's recap a little bit. First, Rabbi Law said Ganav Tlev Nasayil. Person steals a lamb and it matures. After 13 months, it's called a ram. So Rabbi Law says that you're kainit to some extent. You're kainit that if later you go and slaughter it or sell it, even though usually then you have to pay dalat vehei 4 or 5 times as much, but over here, because it changed, even though that change just happens naturally with the maturity of the animal, you're kainit that you don't have to pay for that dalat vehei. That was Rabbi Law's chiddush. Rab Chanina argues with this.
You have to pay for the animal?
So according to Rashi, you still have to pay for the animal itself. You still pay kefil. It's only shini kaina for this detail regarding tficha mechira. Rashi's opinion on the sugi here. Okay, but Rab Chanina brought a clear brayse that says, it's in the second wide line here, the brayse says, Ganav tlev v'nasa ayil, egel v'nasa shoyer, mishalim tashlume kefil, tashlume bava kamisha, ke'en sheganav. It clearly says that even in this case where it changed, it matured, but you still have to pay the dal v'hei and the kefil. And the Bryce also adds, and that will be relevant for the continuation of the Gemara soon, that when you pay that payment of kefil or dal v'hei, you go according to the value that it has, like whatever its value was at the time when you stole it, not the value that it has now. Okay, well let's put that point aside for right now. The point is we have here a clear Bryce that says that you still pay the payment of dal v'hei. That was the question on Rabbi Law. The Gemara went through a little discussion about that, but it didn't answer that question. The Gemara is soon going to answer that question. But in between, the Gemara brings a question that Rab Zeda asks on this brayse. Okay, so let's continue inside. Maskefla Rab Zeda asked, V'nikninu b'shini Hashem. Why shouldn't you acquire this egel or this tle that now matured and has a new name? Instead of being called a tle, it's not called a ayel, or instead of an egel, it's not called a shoyer. And if it has a new name, that itself should be considered a kinyan. This is something the Gemara is going to discuss later. Here, the Gemara is going to bring. So over here, how could the Bryce say that you pay dal v'hei if you slaughter it after it changed and it has a new name? You should be kainit, and you shouldn't have to pay for the dal v'hei.
Like Rabbi Law says.
Well, Rabbi Law said that because it changed, not the change of name. Rabbi Law says the fact that it changed, so it's a different. It's like a different object. It's like a different animal. You stole one animal, now it's a different animal. Rab Zayd is saying, even if you're going to say that because the change is happening naturally, it's the very same animal that matured, you can't consider it to be a new animal, but it's still a change in name. There's a different title. Anything that gets a change of name, that itself is a concept of a shinui, that you're kaina with that.
And where do we see that the Shin Shem is kaina?
Okay, so the Gemara is going to bring, let's see, we'll be leaving the Hamshach over here and Pedic later, we'll see. But this is the rule. Shin Hashem is kaina, so that how could the Bryce say that you still pay for the dal v'hei? So Rav answers, there is no Shinui Hashem here. The animal has the same title, the same name. Because Shor ben Yoimai, an ox, even a day old, Kori Shor, could also be referred to as a Shor, even though we call it also a egel, a calf, until it's 2 years old, but it's also called a Shor. And similar, Ayel ben Yoimai, a ram, which is a day old, even though then you refer to it as a tle, as a lamb, but Kori Ayel could also refer to it as a ram. And the Gemara brings the source. Shor ben Yoimai Kori Shor d'chsiv. There's a pasuk that says Shor a kesef v'eis ki yivolit. So in the pasuk here, it's talking about when it's born, and it says Shor. It's called an ox right away. Ayel ben Yoimai Kori Ayel. Similar, a ram. The day it's born, it's also called a ram. D'chsiv. It says in the pasuk, Yaakov is telling Lavan when Lavan is chasing him and fighting with him. So he tells Lavan, "Ve'ele tzeincha lo yachalti." I didn't eat any rams from your sheep. So he says specifically rams. Does that mean Elimudu lo yachal? He only didn't eat from the rams once they were mature, but kvasim achal. But when it was younger, when they were lambs, he did eat from him. So elalav. No, that's not what he meant to say to Lavan. He meant to say to him, I didn't eat anything from you. Shema mina ayel ben yoimoy kari ayel. Even if it's a day old, you could also refer to it as a ram, and that's what Yaakov meant to say. Okay, so the point is, the idea of a shinui of a title does not apply here. When it goes from being a tle to a ayel, a egel to a shor, because it can be called with the same title on the day it's born. But now the Gemara comes back, Mikol Mokim Kashya. There's a question on what Rabbi Law said from the Braitza. Again, Rabbi Law said that even though this change is a natural change, nevertheless it's like a new animal, and therefore you don't pay for dal v'hei if you slaughter. And the Braise it clearly said that you do pay Dalad V'Hei, meaning the Braise is saying, since it's just a natural maturity, it's not a real change, it's the same animal, and you do pay. So the Gemara brings Omer Rav Sheishes, Homani Beishamai. This Braise that says that it's not considered to be a change is following the opinion of Beishamai. The Omri, Beishamai say, Shinoi, even if there is a change, so Beishamai, it doesn't hold that it's not, it is a change, but even when there is a change, B'mekoimai Oimedes, it still remains in its previous condition, meaning that you're not kind of through a shinui. Even when there is a shinui, still the ownership does not change. And v'loi kani, therefore you don't acquire it. Where did we see Beishamai said this? Tanya, because we learned in a Braisa. Nasan lo be'esneno. So this is the halacha of a esnan, a gift for a zaina. So you have the pasuk which the Gemara is soon going to quote here, where it says, Leisavi esnan zaina, or Mechir Kelev, Beis Hashem Alekachav, a person's giving a gift to a Zaina for a forbidden relationship. So that gift that was used for such an Aveda cannot now be brought as a carbon. So what's if the gift that he gave her was chitin? It was wheat, Vasan Silas, and she made it into flour. So now there's a shina here. It's not the same thing. It's not kernels of wheat anymore. Now it's flour. Or Zaysim, he gave her as a gift olives, and Vasan Shemen, and now she made oil out of it. Or Anavim, he gave her grapes, Vasan Yayin, turned it into wine. So Tani Chade, in one Braisa it says, Aser. It's still Aser to be brought as a carbon, even though it's not the same object as it was when he gave it to her as a gift. But Tani Chade, but in another Braisa it says, Mutter, no, that you are allowed to bring it as a carbon, since it's not that same gift as it was when it was given. V'Omer Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef said about these two braises here that are saying opposite halachas. Tani Gorian de Miaspurk. Gorian from the place Aspurk said, Beishamai Eisrin. It was Beishamai the one that said that you still can't bring it as a carbon. Well, Beisil Matirin. Beisil is the one that said that you could bring it as a carbon. So here we see this machlokes of Beishamai and Beisilol, and the same thing applies over here, that when the braise here said that you steal a tle and it becomes an ayol, so yeah, it is a shinui. And therefore Rabbi Law is right when he says that you don't have to pay Dalad V'Hei. The Braisa says you do pay Dalad V'Hei, because Beishamai, it's going Beishamai. Beishamai's opinion is, even though it is a shinui, but nevertheless, you're still not kind of, similar to what you see over here, that even after there's a shinui, the isser of bringing it as a carbon remains. So the Gemara now brings the sources from the Psukim over there, by the Esnan Zaineh. Where do you see that the shinui, it'll still be aser? My time of the Beishamai. So what's the reason for Beishamai? Because the Chsiv over there in the pasuk where it talks about the Esnan Zaineh, the lashon of the pasuk is so the Gam. It says there Gam. What does it say there in the pasuk? Ki tuyavas Hashem alikecha Gam Shneim. That it's an abomination for the Eibishter Gam Shneim, which goes on Esnan Zaineh and Mechir Kelev, but it's an extra word. It says there the word Gam. What does the words Gam say? L'Rabbai Shinuyayim. It's coming to say that not only the item that was given as a gift is aser, but even if this item now was changed into something else, as the examples brought before, it's still going to be aser to be brought as a carbon. Beisilil disagree. They darshan different. They say, it says heim. It doesn't actually say heim in the pasuk, but it says shnei hem. So the heim mem of the shnei hem, he darshans, what does heim mean? V'loi shinuyayim. That only they, the object itself that was given as a gift, is also to be brought as a carbon, but not if it was changed. Okay, that's the drasha. So it's interesting, even though the Gemara is bringing that the source of Beishamai and Beisil is from these psukim, so you would think that if so, that it's something that they're arguing only regarding a carbon, and it doesn't apply to Geneva that we're talking about, but Mefarshim say that nevertheless, the fact that Beishamai chooses Dafka to darshan the Gam, and Beisil darshans Dafka the Heim, is based on really a svara, that they're arguing regarding a shinui that happens, whether the shinui is, whether you pay attention to the shinui, is it considered to be something that is a change and it's like a new object or not? That's the basis of, it's really a svara that they're arguing about, the basis of why each one chooses how they darshan the psukim. But the Gemara goes on to explain now what Beishamai, Beisil, each one does with the other drasha that they did not darshan. Well, Beishamai, and Beishamai will tell you, even though there is that heim of the word shnehem, that's a different drasha. We don't darshan from there that even if it's changed, you can't bring it as a carbon. What you darshan is heim v'lei v'lo deseim, that the iser only applies to, let's say, an animal itself that was given as a gift, but not to the v'lodes, not to if it gave birth. For that, the iser does not apply.
What should
Udasa. That's
it said?
in the pasuk, gam shneim. Maybe the whole word of shneim is extra. I'm not sure. I mean, the gam is for sure extra. Could have just said ki teyavas Hashem alekecha, and it adds gam shneim. So we darshan the gam and we darshan the shneim, the heim of the shneim. Well, Beis Hillel says tarti shamis mina. From this word shnehem, which means only them, you could learn out both points. Heim v'lo shinuyayem, that only these gifts that you gave and not if it was changed to something else. And heim v'lo say, and you could also darshan heim and not any animal that gave birth to something else. It's the same word that you can it's mashma to learn out both these points from here. Okay, now the Gemara asks on the other hand of Beis Hillel, laksiv gam. According to Beis Hillel, the pasuk says a gam, which seems to come to include something. Beis Shammai darshan that it means even if it was changed. So what does Beis Hillel darshan? Says the Gemara, gam leBeis Hillel kasha. The extra word gam there in the pasuk, according to Beis Hillel, remains a question. Okay, atkan. So this is the discussion of the pshat of the Braisa brought before to explain why it's not a question on Rabbi Law's halacha. But now the Gemara is going to focus on something else. What did it say in the Braisa? In the case where this lamb matured and turned into a ram, so you still have to pay a dalet v'hei, right? But the Braisa clearly said when you pay that dalet v'hei, if you slaughtered it, how do you pay it? According to what value? Not the value that it has now. You pay it according to the value that it had at the time when you stole. Ke'en shaganav. Now, if you remember, on the Samachei Amar Aleph, the Gemara brought what Rav said, that the rule beneged to any geneva is, so you have to pay the keren, the principal, and then you pay kefil, the double or the dalet v'hei. So Rav said keren, you pay always ke'en shaganav, the way it was when it was stolen. But the kefil and the dalet v'hei, you pay according to what it's worth now. B'shas hamoda bedin. Its value that you're paying now, that's what you pay. So the Gemara is going to ask over here, you have a clear question on Rav from this Braisa that says that the dalet v'hei, you pay ke'en shaganav, the way it was worth before when it was stolen. Okay, so Dr. Gemara Zayna, Ad Kanai Pligi, what's the machlekes over here between Rabbi Law and Rab Chanina? Ella, so the argument here is the Mar Sovar Shinikaina. Rabbi Law said because this Taleh matured and became into a ayol, so that's kaina, and therefore you don't pay dalet v'hei. And that price is only Beis Shammai. Mar Sovar, Rab Chanina's opinion is Ein Shinikaina. No, this kind of shinui, since it's happening naturally, it's the same animal, so there's no shinui kain over here. That's the argument of Rab Chanina and Rabbi Law. But when it comes to paying the kefil, and which even Rabbi Law would agree you have to pay kefil, this is Rashi's shitta, even Rabbi Law that says that when there's a natural change, that your kaina, it just means kaina that you don't pay dalet v'hei, but you still pay the keren, you still pay the kefil. Or according to Rab Chanina, you have to pay even the dalet v'hei. Okay? Or Rashi then says, let's say you would be paying in a case where there wasn't actually a shini in the animal itself, but as the Gemara said before, and Daf Samachei Amar Aleph, there's a different kind of change that we could be talking about, a change in its value, in the market value, which the Gemara before called Yukre V'zula. Price went up, the price went down. So regarding paying, when there's any change in value, it seems like that over here everyone is agreeing that you pay the value that it had when it was stolen. Diktani, because the Braisa clearly says, Mishalem tashlumi kefil, v'tashlumi Bava Kama. You pay the value for this lamb that you stole, and now it's a ram, but you pay ke'en shaganav, the value that it was at the time when it was stolen. So, leimet to have it to yufte the Rav. Shouldn't this refute what Rav said? Rav said enough samachei keren ke'en shaganav, that it's the principle that you always pay the way it was when you stole it, mishalem. That's what you pay. But tashlumi kefil, but tashlumi dalet v'hei. But when it comes to paying the double, or you pay dalet v'hei, kishas amode badin, that you pay according to the value that it has now by the din Torah. So there's a clear braise here that says that no, that you pay only ke'en shaganav. So the Gemara answers, Omar Rave. So Rave says like this: Tloim kidmei ikara. If you're paying back the animals themselves, the tloim, the actual animals themselves, that's what you're coming to pay with. You stole a lamb and you're paying back with a lamb. So then you pay kidmei ikara, like the Braisa says. This is Rav wasn't speaking in such a case. If you're paying back the kefil or the dalet v'hei, you're not paying back cash, money. You're paying back, you're bringing a actual lamp to pay back with. So then you pay even the kefil or the dalet v'hei the way it was when it was stolen, which is a lamb. But domim, what was Rav saying? If you're not paying back the actual animal itself, but you're paying back money, then kishalachshav. Then we evaluate it to what it is now, and you pay according to the value that it has now. That's when Rav said his din.
You're not paying back the same animal. You're giving
No,
another animal
yeah,
instead.
right, correct. No, you're not. Well, you have to give kefil means you're giving another animal, or dalad vehei means you're going to have to give four or five animals. But the point is, if you're paying with
an animal,
with an animal like the animal that you stole, then you pay the way it was, the condition it was when you stole. But if you're paying cash, then you have to pay according to the value that it's now.
You have to shut up how much each animal's worth.
Yeah, to know what kind of a tlay you're going to pay. Okay, nechanami, but it's ka'en shagonav if you're paying the animal itself. This is Rashi's pshat in the Gemara, but most Rishonim actually disagree with this pshat. Most Rishonim say that what Rav is saying over here is Tulam kidemei kara means that Rav was not talking about this case b'chlal. Rav was told, when Rav said that there's a difference, that the keren you pay like the value it was when you stole, and the kefil and dalad vehei you pay according to the value that it's now. Rav was only talking about yukra v'zula, when there was a change in the value of the market value of this animal, but there was no change in the animal itself. And this Braisa is talking about the case that Rabbi Law spoke about, when there's a change in the physical body of the animal itself. The change happens by itself. The change just happens because it matures. In such a case, Rav is going to agree that you pay the kefil and dalad vehei the way it was when it was stolen. But in a case where there was a change that's what the Gemara means according to Taisus, most Rishonim. Tloim kidemei kara. If the change happened in the actual behemoth itself, that it matured, so then you pay the kefil and the dalad vehei like it was in the beginning. But domim, if the change was in the market value, yukra v'zula, the price went up or price went down, that's when Rav said that you pay the kefil and the dalad vehei according to the value, the market value that there is now. The kefil and dalad vehei, there's no reason to estimate it according to the way it was before. The chiv of kefil and dalad vehei comes now, so you pay according to the market value that it is now. But if there's a change in the actual body of the animal itself, so then you don't have to pay the kefil and dalad vehei according to what it's now. You pay the kefil and dalad vehei according to what this behemoth was b'shas you stole it. That's the pshat of most Rishonim here in this Gemara. Huh?
The chiyuv happens right now.
No, but when you get to the actual body of the animal, true, the chiyuv is happening now, but the chiyuv is to pay kefil for what you stole. So what you stole is a tle. But if you're looking at market value, the market value of what you stole today is different. So we go according to the market value today. That's
you pay how much it's worth b'shas tigam.
Yeah, okay, no, so
Yeah.
when you're paying money.
Yeah.
Okay, no, but again, but according to the pshat, the Rishonim say over here that if there's a change in market value, you go according to now, because today in the market value today, that's the kefil. Yeah, no, okay, could be yukra v'zula, it could be going up, it could be going down, depends. Okay, Zok the Gemara, Amar Rabba. Now this brings us into a new sugya because Rabbi Law brought up over here this union of shinui when there's a change in the animal. So we're going to learn here about the concept of shinui b'chlal, different kinds of halachas regarding shinui kaina by a gazlan or a ganav. So Amar Rabba says like this: shinui kaina, the fact that if you steal something and there's a change in the object that you stole, so you're kaina it that you can keep that object itself and you only pay back money. So this fact is ksive. You can learn it clearly from a pasuk and also v'tanina, and we learned it clearly in a Mishnah as well. Ksive, we learn it from the pasuk because it says v'heshvis gzeila asher gozal. You have to return the gzeila, and then the pasuk adds the words asher gozal, extra words. Matam v'loim asher gozal. What's the meaning of those words asher gozal? Im ke'en shegozal yachser. If the animal or whatever you stole is in the same condition as you stole it, you have to return the object itself. If it's not in the same condition, dom balma, then the object itself you kaina, and you pay back money for this. But dom balma boyishlumi, you pay back only money. That's the pasuk. Tanina, in a Mishnah we learned tagoizel. Okay, so that goes back to the sugi before. Yeah. Okay, Tanina. Now in the Mishnah we learned tagoizel leitzim. A person steals wood, vasan kalim, and he made vessels out of them. Or tzemer, he steals wool, vasan begodim, and he made clothing out of them. So mishalim kishas hagzela. So he pays like the time of the gzela, which means that he only pays money though. He only pays money like the time of the gzela, but he doesn't have to give back the object itself. That's what the Mishnah is saying there. That the object itself you keep. What's the value that you have to give back? You pay back kishas gzela. Like that's really the halacha that Rav also said before, that the keren you always pay back ken shagonav, like it was at the time of the gzela. That's one Mishnah. Inami, the Gemara says, or there's another Mishnah where you see that the shinui is kaina, and this is a Mishnah that talks about the halacha of reishis hageiz, that a person has to give from the first shearing of the animal, of the wool of the animal, you have to give a portion to the kain. So what happens if lehispek litnei loy? A person, so he sheared the wool of this animal and he didn't give it to the kain. And he already went and dyed it. So pater. So because it's a change, and so therefore he's kaina this with this change of it, that it has a new color, it's a new thing. So that's it, he's pater to give. And over here actually Rashi says in this case, he's going to be pater not only to give from the actual wool, he's going to even be pater to give any money either, because there's no kain that can come and demand this from him. Any kain that will demand it from him, you can say, I'll give it to a different kain. There's no, the actual gaze itself you have to give, but once you kainu it with a shinui, so then you don't have to give anything. Okay, so alma shinui kaina. So that's clear. You see clearly by a ganev that if this is shinui, you're kaina. Yosh, says the Gemara, Omri Rabbana, when it comes to a person that steals something and the owner that you stole it from gave up on it. So now, Omri Rabbana the Nikni. The Rabbanan said that you kaina this geneva as well. This is what Rabbi says. But Mio layadinan idai raise idai Rabbanan. The fact that a ganev is kaina through Yosh, that he only has to pay back money and not the object itself, is this a kinyan min hatayre or is it only min Rabbanan? And the Gemara explains. What should be the source of Minat do I say that you kind of Minat why? Because it could be similar to when a person finds an Aveda, a lost object. What's the halacha there? When you find a lost object. Isn't the halacha kiv in the miyayish mora mino mikamedetesel. If you find a lost object that the owner already gave up on it before you found it, so kanile, you acquire it. So Rashi brings the source. It says in the pasuk over there, "Shetoivad mimenu," that by a naveda, only if it's lost from the owner, but anybody else could find it, then you have to give it back. But if it's something that goes into the lashon, the Gemara says there in Bab Metzia is zute shotfa nahar, zute shalyam. If it's something that the river washed it away and it's not available for anybody, so the owner is totally miyayish on that. In such a case, you're kaina. That's the halacha by an aveda. So hi nami over here as well by geneve kivin the meyayish mara. When you steal something and the owner gave up on it, kanale, you'll be kainet. So al mekani. So this is the source to say min atayra. We can compare a geneve to aveda to say that you're kaina. Now, even though the comparison is not exactly the same, because by aveda you only kaina the aveda if the yush happens before you found it. If the yush happened after you found it, then the yush is not kaina there. But Taisus actually says the halacha by aveda is if the owner is miyayish before you find it, then when you find this aveda you can keep it. You don't have to give anything back, not the object itself and not money. But if the owner is miyayish after you find it, so then you don't have to give back the object itself, but you have to give back money. So you can say that Geneva is the same thing, just like by aveda. If the owner is miyayish after you find it, you give back only money. By Geneva as well. If you steal it and then the owner is miyayish, you can keep the object and you give back money. Or maybe we could say loidamye la aveda. You can't compare Geneva to aveda. Why? Aveda and aveda comes into your possession permissibly. You find it. In our case, because it comes into your hand that you're stealing it, it's forbidden. So midrabbananu, the fact that you're kaine through years, that's just din midrabbanan. And I'll tell you won't be kaine. The Amar Rabbanan, the Rabbanan instituted and said nikni, that if the owner gave up on it, then you can keep it and you only pay money. Mipnei takana sashavim. And Chachamim said this to make it easier for this person to do tshuva, that he should be able to just give back money and he shouldn't have to go and be matriach to give back the gzela itself. If it's hard for him to give back the gzela itself, he may not ever do tshuva. So here they say you can keep it itself and you can give back money. That's the reason why Chachamim instituted that Yish would be kaina by Gneva. This is all Rabbi speaking. But the point is here, Rabbi said that Yish is kaina by Gneva, Yish alone. He had a suffix if it's Menatayr or Medrabanan. Rav Yosef, however, says, Yish ain't a kaina. If you steal something and then the owner gives up on this, Yish is not kaina. But even Medrabanan, there is no kinyan for Yish by a Gneva. You're going to have to give back the object itself.
Isn't when he steals it, Shina Rishus?
No. The
So
stealing itself is
the
not.
point of finding out is not changing because there's a cost. But you can't, why should we say by Damim in Lav done by Damim? You should be able to call it also. Say the same thing, has the same din as a Heshav Zeder, but it's Damim or what's a thing. So it's just the way we say by the Etzim Inyan that there's no Shinui. We should say by Damim too, no Shinui.
I'm not sure what you're saying. Okay. The Gemara is talking over here about the Shinui, Shinui Kaina, and then Yush. It gives up. Okay, Shinui Rishus is Shaykh if you sell it to someone else. It's a different thing. The Gemara is going to talk later about Shinui Rishus. It's all later in the Sukkis here. Okay, Zok the Gemara, Eisvei Rav Yosef le Rabba. So Rav Yosef asked on Rabba that said that Yush alone is Kaina by Geneva. So here the Mishnah says as follows: Gozel Chometz, person stole Chometz, and then Vava Olava Pesach, and Pesach passes with the Chometz in his possession. So what does he do? Oim Eloi, the Gazlan could go and tell the Nigdal, the owner, Arei Shalach lefanecha, here I'm returning you this Chometz as is, and that's it. Even though now the Chometz that he's returning to him has zero value. Because once it's Chometz, Sha'ava Olava Pesach, it's Asa Bahano. But Rashi says this is called Hezek She'ena Niker, because there's no noticeable change in the physical thing. You can return it as is. Okay, but now the Gemara asks on this, if you're going to say that Yish is Kaina, this stolen Chometz, Kivin the Mata, Iden Isura, when the time of Pesach comes, and this Chometz will become Aser, Vade Meyayish. The owner of it is definitely Meyayish because he knows that it has no value anymore. So if that's the case, if Rabbi is right that Yish is Kaine, so then why is it that you're returning the object and you say to the owner, here, take the object as is, even though it has no value? Once he's Meyayish, so then you don't pay back the object then becomes yours. And you have to pay money. And if you have to pay money, you have to pay the value of what this Chometz is. You can't just give him back the object as is. That object belongs to you now. Amalei. So Rabbi answers and says, you're right, in this case, Yish is not going to be kaina. Why not? Kika mina no. When did I say that Yish is kaina? That's in a case of Zem Misyayish v'Zeh Reitze Liknois. When the original owner is Miyayish, and the Gazlan wants to be kainet. Hi, but in this case, Zeh Misyayish, the original owner gave up because he knows it's going to be Aser. Pesach came and it's Aser. But the Gazlan himself is not interested in being kained either, for the same reason, because he has no value of it. So in such a case, there is no kinyan here. The kinyan of Yish is only if he wants to be kained. So therefore, you can give back the object itself, even though it has no value. Another shaila is Abai asked Rabba that said Yish alone is kained. So the pasuk says karbonai. This is by karbonoila, oila karbonai. So it has to be your carbon. What do we learn out from this? V'loya gazel. That if it's stolen, you can't bring it as a carbon. So at this point, the Gemara understands, what does it mean it's stolen? If you take a chulin animal, a plain animal, and you steal it, and then you want to bring it as a carbon, you can't bring it as a carbon. That's what the Bryce is saying, you learn from this pasuk. So the question is, hey chidami, what's the case of the drasha of this pasuk? Are we talking about that you stole this animal, and the original owner was not miyayish yet, and now you want to be makdish this animal, and bring it as a carbon? Why do I need a pasuk to say that you can't bring it as a carbon? Pshita, it's obvious that there's no way you can bring it as a carbon. Why is it obvious? So Taisus over here says, if it's not yours, you can never be makdish to bring it as a carbon. The original owner wasn't miyayish from it, so it doesn't belong to you. How are you being makdish at all to bring it as a carbon? You don't need a pasuk of karbonate to say that you can't bring it as a carbon. Elolav, so the case must be over here, that the owner was miyayish on this. And therefore, you're kained. You have to pay back money, but the animal itself now becomes yours. And that's where the pasuk is saying the drasha of karbonai v'lo yagazel, that you can't bring it as a carbon. Shema mina yish leikani. So from here I see that the pasuk. What's the drasha? The pasuk is saying karbonai v'lo yagazel. So what's the pasuk is coming to say? That even though the owner was miyayish, but it's not karbonai. it still does not become yours. So you see from this pasuk that it's coming to say that the yish doesn't help and you're not going to be kaina. Okay, that's a taich of the Gemara. There's a big discussion about this Taisus and the Rishonim. Okay, well that's a simple taich over here in the Gemara that you see over here that the pasuk is clearly saying that even though there was a yish, but it's still not yours. Amalei Rave, so Rave answers to defend Rabbe and says, well, the Taimech, according to your question that Abai asked about this, I'll bring you another similar drasha where there you'll see that you got the whole drasha of Karbonai wrong. What's a similar drasha? The Tanya we learned in the Braise, Hod the Tanya we learned in the Braise, Mishkovai. Okay, what this is talking about over here is a Zav. A Zav, a person that has a certain omission, so then whatever he lies on becomes Tomei. Okay, so but the pasuk says, Isha sheyiga b'mishkovai, if you touch his bed. So it says specifically his bed. So it says the Braise. So what do we learn from this? V'loi hagazel. But if this Zav lies in a bed, then he stole it. So then it's not going to become Tomei. So now the question is on this drasha as well. Hey chidomi, what exactly is this drasha we are saying that it does not become Tomei? Ileme, if the case over here is the Gazal Amra, he stole wool, Vavdei Mishko, and he changed it. He turned it into a bed. Is there any mandama that paskins and says that even though it completely changed it, you would not be kainet? So even though this Zav stole the materials for the bed, but now that he turned it into a bed, it's a new thing, it's a new object. Shini Maisa is definitely kaina. We don't paskin like Beis Shammai that said before that if it's a Shini Maisa, you're not kaina. You definitely are going to be kainit. So if you kaina, so it's his bed. How would the pasuk say that it's not mishkavoy? So what's the pshat over there regarding this drush of mishkavoy? It was already a bed. The Gazal Mishkav the Chavrei. He stole a bed from his friend. It's a ready-made bed, a mattress or whatever it is. And he stole it from his friend and he lied down on it as is, with no shimmy at all. That's the drasha over there to say that Mishkavai, Veloy HaGazal, even though it's the very same bed that you stole, and he's lying down in it, because you stole it, there's no tumah. This is an interesting thing. Rashi here says that it's Exeris HaKosav, even though this is a Zav, and he's touching it, but the very fact that it's stolen, it's Exeris HaKosav, that it doesn't become Tomei. Taisus here disagrees with this. Taisus says, V'zehu Teimah, that to say that the pasuk says just because you stole it, and even though it's a regular bed, same bed, still there's no tumah on this. Taisus says it's a teimah. Taisus says a different shot on this. But this is what Rashi says, that it's exeris hakosav. The point is, you see over here in this drasha of Mishkavai that what it means is that it's a bed that belonged to your friend, not raw materials. You took the bed from your friend and you lied down on it. So then it doesn't become Tamei. Says the Gemara, if so, we could touch over here the drasha of Karbonai Veloya Gazla in a similar way. Ochanami, the Gazal Karbon the Chavrei. The case of that drasha of Karbonai is not that you stole an animal, a chulin animal, and now you want to be makdashit as a carbon. You stole a carbon from your friend. Your friend was already makdashit as a carbon, and you stole that carbon and you want to bring it as a carbon. So on that the pasuk says Karbonai Veloya Gazal. So Rashi has two pshatim for this. One pshat Rashi says that in such a case, the pasuk is coming to say, you may think that if you steal this animal and you bring it as a carbon, maybe the carbon should be accepted, not for you, but for your friend that you stole it from. He wasn't miyayish. In a case where if the first person that you stole it from was not miyayish, so maybe the carbon should work for him. That's what the pasuk is coming to say, that when you bring the carbon that the first owner, the real owner, wasn't miyayish, the carbon is not going to work for him. That's the drasha. Or another pshat Rashi says that it's after Yush. You stole it from him and it's after Yush. But in this case, the Yish is not going to be kaina, and even Rabba would agree to it. And the reason is because if once the first person was makdashit already, there's a rule regarding hektish. Rashi here brings the lashon that kol hechad iseh begaz derachmani iseh. Something that belongs to hektish always remains in the domain of hektish, and Yish can't change that. So in this case, Rabba would be made that Yish won't work because you stole it once; it's already hektish. Eis ve'abai le Rav Yosef. Now Abai asks on Rav Yosef. Right, Rav Yosef is the one that says that Yush is not kind of by Gzela. So Abai asks on Rav Yosef, and here also this is halacha benegay to tumah. So before we learn inside, the general halacha regarding tumah is any raw materials is not makabel tumah, but it has to be something that's a vessel. So how do you define something to be an actual vessel? So sometimes just a thought that the person has, that he makes up his mind, that he wants to use it as is for something, the machshava itself makes it into, it determines that it's a vessel. So the Brayse here says, or it's actually a Mishnah, the Mishnah says, Eiris Shabalabayis. If a person, a private person, so he has hides of an animal, Machshave mitamasan, just his thought that he designates it, to use it for something, for a bed, or for a stool, or for whatever it is, it becomes a keli and it's makabel tuma. However, if it's from a tanner that's not keeping it for himself, he's selling it. His machshava that he wants to use it for something specific does not turn it into a keli, and the reason is because he's not keeping it for himself. He's selling it to someone else, and maybe that person is going to change it to a different use, and the designated use that you're thinking of is not what it's going to end up being. So it does not turn into a keli through your machshava. Now, shalganev, this is what's relevant for us over here. If it's a case of a person that stole this hide of animal, machshava mitamasan, the machshava of this ganev that he decides he wants to use it for a specific thing, it will not be mikabel tuma. So the only way to explain this is because the original owner that you stole it from, the owner, is meyayish. He gives up. So because he yish, you're kaina. So now it's yours. So therefore your machshava will determine that it's a vessel. So it's mikabel tuma. Shel gazlon. Now what's the difference between a ganev and a gazlon? As we learned before already, a ganev is someone that comes and steals in hiding. He hides from you when he steals. And a gazlan is a robber that comes and with force and steals. In such a case, if this gazlan has a thought to use it for something, his thought is irrelevant and it's not going to be mekabel tuma. And the reason is because by a ganev, according to the Tana Kama here, by a ganev, the owner gives up on it. He has no idea who stole it. So he gives up on it. So the yish, so you're kaina. By the gazlan, he knows who the gazlan is, so he's planning on getting it back from him. So the machshava doesn't help. Rav Shimon says it's the opposite. Shal gazlan machshava mitamasam. By a gazlan, the owner does not give up, even though this is a guy. The guy came by force, but nevertheless the owner knows who he is. Again, 1 second. Sorry, Rav Shimon chiluf advarim shal gazlan machshava mitamasam. When it comes to a gazlan, so in such a case, the owner is afraid of him. Even though he knows who he is, but he's afraid of him because he came by force. So the owner doesn't want to start up with him. So he's miyayish. So the machshav is mitame. Mishal ganev. On the other hand, when it comes to a ganev, a guy that snuck and stole from you, so even though you don't know now who he is, but you're gonna make a research, you'll find a ganev. And therefore, you're not giving up on it by a ganev. So yeah, the Rav Shimon says the opposite sort. Dafka by a ganev, you don't give up, and you're hoping to get it back. So the thought that you have to use it, that the ganev has, to use it for a certain vessel, is irrelevant, because the owner is going to take it back. Well, because the bailim do not give up on it. So here you see clearly, you see clearly over here in this Mishnah that with Yish you're kaina, whether it's a ganev, whether it's a gazlan, but Yish is kaina. So how could Rav Yosef say there's no kinyan of Yish? A clear Mishnah that says it is. Rav Yosef answered, what are we talking about over here? That besides the Yish, there's something else here. He stole this hide and then he trimmed it. So he trimmed it, so there's a shinei maaseh. There's actual change in the physical object. In such a case, it's going to be kaina. Ask if Rabbi Bar Chanan, but Rabbi Bar Chanan asks on this answer that there's a certain case over there that you see in that Mishnah where there was no physical change. V'haloi itzpa shanukan. In that Mishnah, the Mishnah before mentions the case of a itzpa. What's a itzpa? A tray that's used for food, or maybe a tabletop, where over there, the hide could be used for this tray without making any change. This hide is used for a tray without any trimming. And still, the Mishnah says, when the Ganev steals it, and there's Yiyush, he's kaina, and his machshave makes it into a vessel. That's not, because the Mishnah there, and right before this Mishnah that we quoted, it says there, Kol makim shein chesadim melacha, anytime you have an object, and the object could be used as is, as a vessel, and it's not missing any additional work to make it into a vessel, so then your thought that you designate that you want to use it as a vessel, that will turn it into a vessel, and it's makabel tuma. Yesh chesadim malacha, but if it's a raw material which still has to do work, you need to do work in order to make it into a vessel. So your machshava will not turn it into a vessel. Chutz v'ne itzva. The itzva is something where usually people trim it to a certain size in order to use it as a tray, but because it doesn't need that trimming, it could be used as is. So therefore, this itzva is going to be mekabel tuma just with your machshava without any maaseh. So that's the Mishnah there. This is the case the Mishnah there is talking about. And then the next Mishnah says this case about the Ganev and the Gazlin. So how could Rav Yosef say that it's talking about a case where there's a Shinei Maisa? If it's talking about a Itzvah, which it doesn't need any trimming at all, and as is, it's being used, that's what the Mishnah said there, and still the Mishnah says that Iyush is Kaineh. So this is still a question on Rav Yosef. Elam Arave, so Rava said like this. Hi Milse, Kashi Barabel Rav Yosef, Esrin V'Tartan Shnin. This question on Rav Yosef from a clear Mishnah that says that Iyush is Kaineh by Gneve, this was a question that Rabbi asked on Rav Yosef, and he didn't give an answer for 22 years. He didn't answer it Adi Yosef Rav Yosef Bereisha until Rav Yosef became the Rosh Hashiva, and then Uparka, and then he answered it. And he said as follows, over there in that Mishnah, the reason why the Ganav is Kaineh, it's not with Iyush alone. Shini Hashem kishini Ma'aseh Dami. Besides the shini of when you make a physical change in something, so as we learned in the beginning today, there's also when you have a change in name or a change of title, same thing. So when you have a change of title, so then that's equivalent to a shini Ma'aseh, and it will be kaineh. So it explains shini Ma'aseh my time. Why, if you physically change something, is the gan of kaineh, as we learned before from the pasuk, is because hasa meikara eitzim. Because first it was just wood and hashta kalim, and now you changed it, and now it's a vessel. Shini Hashem Nami. So if it has a new title, it's the same thing. Meikara karele meshcha. In the beginning it was called just a hide, and v'hashta avarzin. And now it has a different name. Avarzin is the name for this itzvah, for this tray in Aramaic. So because it has a new name, so therefore it's the same like a shini Ma'aseh. That's what Rava answered. So in this case, it's not just Yush. It's a Yush and a Shini Hashem has a new name. That's why the Ganav is Kainet. Taisus over here, there's a Machlekes Rishonim about this. Taisus actually says that the Shini Hashem is not as powerful as Shini Ma'aseh. Shini Hashem is only Kainet together with Yush. A Shini Ma'aseh could be Kainet alone. Okay, let's see one more piece of it, just the end of this Inyan. So the Gemara asks on this, V'harei Marish, if you're telling me that the Shini Hashem is Kainet, but how about the halacha of a beam? If a person, a Ganav, steals a beam, the Ikar Shini Hashem. Now, you took this beam and you built it into your house. So you built it into the roof. And now there's a new name here. The Meikara Kshura, first it was called a beam, V'ashta Tlala. Now it's called a roof. There's a Mishnah about this case, Alamori Shagozol. So the Mishnah says, if a person steals a beam, Shabane Bibira, and he builds it into his house, Shenaitel Domov, that the owner gets paid back only the money for it, but we don't make him break his house and take out the beam. And the reason is, in order to make it easier for this person to do tshuva. Otherwise, he would have to break his house and he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't return it. So the Gemara says, what do you see over here? The only reason he doesn't have to give back the beam itself is because Chachamim instituted this especially, so he should be able to do tshuva. Oh, lav hachi, but if not for that takana, hada b'inei, you have to give back the beam as is. So the question is, but why? Didn't you just say that a shini Hashem is just as it's equivalent to shini Ma'aseh? So in such a case, it's not called a beam anymore. It's called a roof. So it should be kaina. Okay, and Taisus actually says, even according to his opinion, that usually shini Hashem is only kaina together with Yush. Taisus says it depends what kind of shini Hashem it is. This is a shini Hashem where it's mamish like a new thing. It's called a roof. In such a case, it's a very strong shini Hashem, and it should be kaina on its own. So this is a question on the answer that Rava said. Rav Yosef, so Rav Yosef says, Marish Shmo Yolov. A beam, even after it is built into a house, it actually still does retain its original name. The Tanya, because we learned in the Braisa regarding the Lashon that the Pasuk says, regarding the Beis HaMikdash, Tzalois Habayis, Elo HaMaltotin. That the Tzalois Habayis are the Maltotin. How do they translate Maltotin over there?
Casings.
The casings that they have by the windows, I think. They make these by the windows. So in the Beis HaMikdash, these woods that they had by the windows, it's like sort of, so it's called Tzalois Habayis. And V'ha'ubim, Elo HaMerishes. And the word ubim in the pasuk refers to the beams, and these are the beams that are in the roof of the Beis Hamikdash. So the pasuk refers to it to ubim, which means beams, even though it's not a beam anymore, even though it's a roof. So you see that even after it's built in, it still doesn't lose its original name. So therefore, over there by the Marish, if not for the Takanas Hashavim, you would have to give it itself back. That's one answer. Another answer, the Gemara says, when you have a change in something, over here, you have a change in its name, but it's b'shini Hashem lo have a shini. Over here, this is a change of name that can go back to its original name. so it's not going to be a shinui. If you take this beam out of the roof, so then it's going to become back a beam. So such a kind of a shinui is not going to be a shinui. V'shinui Hashem she'ein chayzel b'riyasai. No, sorry. Sorry. This already is the next piece of Gemara. We'll leave it for tomorrow. And we just finish off what the Gemara is trying to say over here. When it comes to this, the itzpah that we spoke about before, regarding the itzpah, once you turn it into a tray, so apparently it's not chayzel b'riyasai. It's not reversible. It remains exactly. But over here, the marish, even after it's built into the roof, you can take it out and it will comes a beam again. So that's not a permanent shinui.